Okay. Good evening, everyone. Welcome to the Lincoln City Council meeting of Monday, January 27th. I'd like to take a few moments to reach everyone out in the audience and talk a little bit about the recent snowfall that we've had last weekend. And I do want to reach out and I want to commend our city workers, our crews who work diligently to get the arterial streets done. I think they did a spectacular job, and I think we can all recognize that. But everyone up here on the dais, judging by the number of complaints that we all personally received concerning some of the residential streets, the number of complaints that the city received on the residential streets totaling 800 plus concerns about how that was handled, I just want to assure the public out there we can do better. And we will do better. We know that we have to be proactive when certain conditions happen that dictate that we do take stronger direction when it comes to our residential areas. And, you know, we learned lessons from the winter weather task force that got together and tried to figure out the best methods for us to deal with our residential streets. And there's no doubt that pretreatment, it works so successfully on our arterial streets, and we're not suggesting that, but we do know that there are areas of the residential intersections that could have had some sand and gravel on them. We know that there are several hills in our city that should have had some sand and gravel to prevent some of the crashes that we've heard about. And we are committed to doing better, and we are committed to working with Lincoln Transportation and Utility and working together on these areas that we know that we need improvement. I know that we received a number of complaints, and we continue to receive a number of complaints about our outreach on this area, but we are, all of us, committed to working together and being proactive in the residential areas.
Before we have our Pledge of Allegiance and the moment of silence, I'd like to mention to everybody that today represents the 75th anniversary of the liberation of Auschwitz.
So let us all rise, please, for the Pledge of Allegiance, followed by a period of silent meditation.
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Welcome again. In accordance with LB 898, a copy of the Open Meetings Act is posted at the back of the chamber. The order of the business of the City Council is as follows. The clerk will call the items listed on the agenda under public hearing. Anyone wishing to speak on an item should come forward after the clerk reads that item. The applicant and those in favor should speak first, then those opposed. The applicant may then make one short rebuttal. Each speaker should begin by stating name, address, and whether you are speaking in favor of or in opposition to the item. Testimony is limited to 5 minutes per speaker. After all public hearings, the council will vote on resolutions and items listed under third reading. On the second and last meeting of the month, immediately prior to adjournment, anyone may speak on any issue not on the agenda for that date nor planned for a future agenda. And I believe, Teresa, tonight is an open mic night after our last item. And can you please go ahead and call the first item?
Yes, we ask those of the general public coming forward to testify to please clearly state your name, spell your name, give your address, and sign in on the sign-in sheet lying on the podium. Testifiers may use either microphone, and there is a sign-in sheet by each microphone. We ask those individuals from city staff who are testifying to please state your name, title, and the department you work for. Our first item of business is our public hearing consent agenda, items 1 through 3.
Is there anyone in the audience that would like to speak on any of these items? And I see that we have some new appointments.
Yes.
Okay.
Jeff Kirkpatrick, City Attorney. I'm here to introduce Johansi Christie, who's been recommended to the City Council by the Mayor for the Charter Revision Commission.
Yay.
As you recall, Charter Revision Commission, and we'll actually be having a few ideas to come before you for, we hope, the May primary. We have 15 folks on the Charter Revision Commission. Very good body, very well qualified body, including a couple of former City Council members, various backgrounds, several attorneys. And Mr. Christie is being nominated to fill the slot that was formerly held by Clancy Woolman, who unfortunately passed away a few months ago. And I've had the privilege of knowing Johansi for, well, we don't even talk about how long, but was
As long
it
as I
your,
can remember, yeah.
his celebration when he graduated from law school,
Yeah,
for
that's
example?
right. Yeah,
And
thank you.
I'm excited about having him join the commission. I know he'll do a great job.
Wonderful. Well, welcome, Mr. Christie. Do you
you.
want to share a little bit about your background?
Sure. I'm from Lincoln, born and raised. Been here my entire life, except for when I was an undergrad. I left for about 4 years, then came back here for law school. So again, grew up in Lincoln. Lincoln is very special to me as a Lincolnite, someone who's actually born here and been here throughout my adulthood. And went to law school here, graduated in 2009. I've been a public defender for 10 years, a decade, and I've had the opportunity to serve the community on some nonprofit boards and just maybe volunteering here and there. Throughout my career, I thought about just different ways that I can serve the community and be active and try to help, because again, I really care about Lincoln. And so I'm just grateful for this opportunity, and I do consider it an opportunity to be nominated to serve on this charter commission. And I'm hopeful for the opportunity to be able to serve the community and the city specifically with this appointment. So I hope you guys will approve it.
Wonderful. Thank you. Are there any questions for Mr. Christie? Terrific. Well, we're glad you're
all
your
right.
willingness.
That was long, but the
Thank
pay's
you.
low.
Thank you
for serving.
No, thank you.
Is there anyone else who would like to testify on this item? Okay.
Yes, yeah.
Of course. Please come forward.
Hi, I'm Adele Burke, and I am from the mayor's office. And I'm here to introduce Sarbani Chakraborty, who the mayor has nominated to serve on the Multicultural Advisory Committee. As you know, the MAC provides really important feedback to the mayor on the city's work to promote inclusion and diversity in our city, and gives a lot of feedback on racial disparities and disparities on the basis of disability. We think Sarbani will be a perfect fit for the committee. She has a PhD in molecular biology from UNL, where she was a postdoctoral research fellow for over a decade. And she's also served the community as a board member for Habitat for Humanity and for the Indian Association of Lincoln. We're excited to have her serve on MAC if you appoint her. And I'll hand it over to her.
Hi, I'm Sarbani Chakraborty, and my address is 8918 Highmark Lane. I've lived in Lincoln since 1981. My husband is a physician, just retired in the community. I've raised two children here, and they've graduated from East High School. They're now away doing their own things. And one is a lawyer. I've also, besides having a PhD from UNL, I also have an MBA from UNL. So I basically would want to serve the community. I am right now in the Mayor's Interfaith Prayer Breakfast Committee. I've served on different committees. My multicultural interest serves way back from when I was a student, and I became involved in the Indian Student Association, wanting to promote the Indian culture. And I see that now the community, since 81, I've lived here since 81, so since 81 I've seen that the community has really become very, very multicultural. It's a very different community today than it was. So I would like to, help with the mayor's agenda on this and see what I can do. So.
Well, thank you so very much for your willingness to serve as well. Are there any questions? Seeing none, thank you again.
Thank you.
I look forward to you serving. Is there anyone else in the audience that would like to testify on these items? Okay, let's move on.
All right, we can vote on these items. Items 1A and B were introduced by Shob.
So moved.
Introduced by Shob, seconded by McGinnis. Any discussion? Please call the roll.
Ward.
Yes.
Washington.
Yes.
Bowers.
Yes.
Christensen.
Yes.
McGinnis.
Yes.
Raybold.
Yes.
Shob.
Yes.
Motion carried 7-0. Items 1C, D, and H, and 2A through F were introduced by Ward.
So moved.
Second.
Introduced by Ward, seconded by Christensen. Any discussion? Please call the roll.
Ward.
Yes.
Washington.
Yes.
Bowers.
Yes.
Christensen.
Yes.
McGinnis.
Yes.
Raybold.
Yes.
Schob.
Yes.
Motion carried 7-0. Next then is our public hearing ordinance on second reading, item 4A. An ordinance amending chapters 10.40 entitled Snow Emergencies and 10.41 entitled Snow Removal Districts of the Lincoln Municipal Code to define, quote, authorized official, unquote, and snow emergency, and amending the terms relating to snow removal districts.
Welcome, Mr. Cassidy.
Madam Chair, council members, good evening. I'm Tom Cassidy, the interim director of Lincoln Transportation and Utilities. This fall, Tim Byrne, who is the division head of our street maintenance division, and myself met with Mayor Leary and Gaylor Baird to discuss snow removal operations in the winter here in Lincoln. And one of the things we recommended to the mayor is that we change the existing city ordinance regarding the declaration of snow emergencies to try to streamline that and make the process potentially at least a little bit faster. That's what this ordinance does primarily. Instead of having the mayor be the only person who can declare a snow emergency, it adds the person that is the director of Lincoln Transportation Utilities, the assistant director for transportation, and the division head for the street maintenance division. In this process, there would be 4 people who could declare a snow emergency, so if one of them was unavailable or couldn't be available for a matter of a period of time, there would be any of those other 3 officials who could declare a snow emergency. Although our current mayor is, in my experience, the most accessible and easy to get a hold of all the 6 mayors I've worked for as a director, there have been times in the past where there has been a time delay between the time we realized we needed a snow emergency declaration and the time we could execute one. These have never been incredibly long, but sometimes timing is really important. Getting a snow emergency declaration done in a way that hits the news cycle so that it can be broadcast on, for example, the 10 o'clock television newscast can be important. And if no one's immediately available, someone's in a dinner giving a speech, something along those lines, we might miss that time window that would be optimal. In reality, during that time that I've served as a director, there has never been an occasion where the mayor initiated a snow emergency at his or her own initiative. It's always been done only after asked for by Lincoln Transportation Utilities. So in reality, the mayor has always relied in the past, and I think would in the future, on a request from the very same officials that would now be able to make that declaration on their own. While making that change in the ordinance, the law department took advantage of the opportunity to also clean up some language that was in the chapter on snow emergencies that was quite redundant. So the other changes that you see here in legislative format are changes to do just that. It's to clean up the language and reduce the redundancies. And I'd be happy to answer any questions.
Right.
Is there a hierarchy established for who gets to decide, or does anybody who wants to say, I'll do it, go first, or?
No, I think any of those 4 officials could declare a snow emergency and could rescind it. There is a process by which the authorized official is the authorized official throughout the entire term of the snow emergency. So if I were to declare a snow emergency, I'm also responsible for rescinding it when it's done. And the power still rests with the mayor to change that person's authorization at any time. So if he or she wanted to take over responsibility for that after it's been declared, the mayor has the prerogative to do that.
Are there any other questions for Mr. Cassidy? James?
Can you explain what happens when a snow emergency is called and how that impacts the community and the importance of getting that done so it hits news cycles at an appropriate time?
Really, the basic function of a snow emergency is to create some parking bans that would not exist otherwise. It prohibits parking on designated snow emergency routes, which includes our arterial streets, designated snow emergency routes, transit routes, those are the streets that our buses, transit buses drive in StarTran, and also certain streets that have been designated in residential areas that are around schools. So there's quite a few of those. Virtually every neighborhood in Lincoln has some of those streets that penetrate into the residential neighborhood that are either bus routes or school routes. And ordinarily, you can park on those, except, of course, in places where parking is prohibited. But in a snow emergency, once that's declared, parking is prohibited on both sides of the street on all of those kinds of designated snow emergency routes. And also, the police department is empowered to remove vehicles from those. So when we need to get plowing done in something like a 6 or an 8 or a 12-inch snowfall, and a snow emergency is declared, suddenly we've got an automatic prohibition on parking on those routes, and the police are empowered to remove the vehicles. And of course, it's far better if no one does that. You know, if we can have those cars moved by their owners or not parked there in the first place, it makes our job a lot easier, and it relieves the police of the need to be dispatched to tow vehicles. So we try to get that word out to the public. It used to be that the news cycle was pretty straightforward. You know, you needed to get that declaration made by 5:30 in the afternoon or by 9:30 at night. It's a little bit different now because people get their news in different ways, but we still think those traditional media outlets hit an awful lot of people. So if we're going to declare a snow emergency, we'd like to do it in a way that we can get ample notice out to the news media outlets for their regular newscasts.
Thank you.
Any other questions?
Madam
Oh,
Chairwoman,
sure.
I have a question. Mr. Cassidy, can you please tell me what's the decision order here? So any of 4 positions could be the authorized official. How will they make the decision when the weather starts to look dicey?
Yeah. Well, ordinarily that would be left up to Tim Byrne, who's right now is the division manager of Lincoln Transportation and Utility Street Maintenance Division. If Tim happened to be in Orlando at a conference, Lonnie Berkland would probably make that call. If Lonnie wasn't available, he's the assistant director for transportation. Whoever occupies my position would probably make that call.
So it rises instead of falls.
Yeah, as a practical matter, Tim's the guy that's on the street. He's the one that's in constant communication with his district supervisors in that position, and the labor supervisors who are on the street, the people who really know what the conditions are. So I would say ordinarily that's probably what would happen. I would never dream of declaring a snow emergency unless my direct reports, Lonnie or Tim, suggested that was necessary.
And it looks as if the ordinance as it's proposed is that if, say, Mr. Burns declared the snow emergency, if for some reason he wasn't able to remain the authorizing official, at that point, the mayor says who the next authorizing official is.
Yes. Now, that's how I think it would work in the real world. In the ordinance, of course, any of those 4 officials can be an authorized official. So if the mayor decided to get up tomorrow morning and declare a snow emergency, she still has that authority.
Right, but she's the only one who has the authority to replace an authorizing official.
That's correct.
Thank you.
Thank you very much.
All right, is there anyone else in the audience that would like to?
Sorry, Madam Chair. Sorry, could I?
Oh, sure.
Director Cassidy, I beg your pardon. Just one quick question. So the only difference is, so at what point would the mayor be notified that there's a snow emergency? So it happens in the middle of the night. The difference in this ordinance, as I read it, so it goes from the bottom up. So does she wake up? We wake up? Now we know there's unless we're on watching the news. Explain to me how that all will work, how it works differently than before.
That really wouldn't be necessary. Today, as the ordinance stands, we'd have to call the mayor. And we'd have to talk face-to-face or personally with the mayor and get a signed executive order to declare a snow emergency. But tonight, let's say we got a very heavy unanticipated snowfall tonight. Thankfully, there is none in the forecast. But if that were to happen tonight, Tim Byrne, Lonnie Berkland, Tom Cassidy, or Larry and Gaylor Baird, any of those 4 people could declare the snow emergency.
And she would have to sign it.
No.
Tonight.
Once it's been declared, the authorized official who made the declaration is responsible for it through the end of it unless the mayor decides otherwise.
Okay. Okay. Thank you. Thank you.
I'm gonna drag this out.
Okay. Richard?
Yeah.
Okay, when you're talking about the parking prohibition bans, it says in here that a total parking prohibition may be designated and established only by an executive order of the mayor. Is that correct? But if you declare an emergency parking, that's the odd even, right?
No, a snow emergency parking ban applies to both sides of the street on bus routes, snow emergency routes, arterial streets, and transit routes. A residential parking ban would be on one side of the street or the other unless the mayor, and only the mayor, decides it should be on both sides of the street.
Okay.
So we're only doing one side of the street residential parking bans unless it happens to be one of those school routes or bus routes that penetrates into a neighborhood.
Okay.
Thank you for asking that question, Richard, because that was confusing to me. I wanted to know what all meant.
Yeah.
Yes.
All means all.
I just had two quick questions, two follow-up questions, I guess. Outside of parking being influenced by snow emergency, is there anything else that happens if a snow emergency is declared, right? I mean, we're not talking about schools canceling, we're not talking about like businesses shutting down, we're just essentially talking about people having the ability to park in certain parts of the street.
Yes. One other thing, though, Councilman, and that is that the towing of vehicles from snow emergency routes is also becomes authorized. So we can tow those vehicles off of there if they're not moved voluntarily by the owner.
And then I guess my second question is, can you speak a little bit to the experience and the skills that those four people would have and their judgment capacity? What's their competency like, right?
I feel very confident that the Assistant Director of LTU for Transportation and the Street Maintenance Division Manager, these are professionals. This is what they do for a living. They belong to professional associations. This is where their education and training is. They have many years of experience dealing with it. Me, on the other hand, not much. That's why I would always rely upon the assistant director or the division manager.
So skilled professionals, people who have worked in this field for a while, people who know the city of Lincoln, and people who have education and experience in
They
this
can tell
department
you
area.
about the number of tons that go in a 12 cubic yard dump truck and the environmental impacts, and they really are experts in these matters. And you know, they are the people that we have always relied upon to make the decision on when a snow emergency declaration is needed.
Perfect. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you very much. Is there anyone else in the audience that would like to testify on this item? Let's move on.
All right, that concludes our public hearing. We can move into the voting session. Item 5A is amending the pay schedule for the employee group whose classifications are assigned to the pay range prefixed by the letter M by creating the classification of Public Health Epidemiology Supervisor, introduced by McGinnis.
So moved.
Second.
Introduced by McGinnis, seconded by Washington. Any discussion? Please call a roll.
Ward?
Yes.
Washington?
Yes.
Bowers?
Yes.
Christensen?
Yes.
McGinnis?
Yes.
Raybold?
Yes.
Schob?
Yes.
Motion carried, 7-0. 5B is amending the pay schedule for the employee group whose classifications are assigned to the pay range prefixed by the letter M by changing the title from Information and Fiscal Services Manager to Public Health Informatics and Planning Manager, introduced by McGinnis.
So moved.
Second.
Introduced by McGinnis, seconded by Christensen. Any discussion? Please call the roll.
Ward?
Yes.
Washington?
Yes.
Bowers?
Yes.
Christensen?
Yes.
McGinnis?
Yes.
Raybold?
Yes.
Schob?
Yes.
Motion carried, 7-0. 5C, annexation 19009. This is annexing approximately 0.29 acres of right-of-way for a bridge on Fletcher Avenue east of North 84th Street, generally located at North 84th and Fletcher Avenue, introduced by McGinnis.
So moved.
Second.
Introduced by McGinnis, seconded by Washington. Any discussion?
Long overdue.
Long
Glad to see
overdue?
it.
Roy,
This is a good thing.
this is a good thing. Okay.
Simon and Garfunkel.
Okay. Please call the roll.
Ward.
Yes.
Washington.
Yes.
Bowers.
Yes.
Christensen.
Yes.
McGinnis.
Yes.
Raybold.
Yes.
Schob.
Yes.
Motion carried 7-0. Item 5D, change of zone 19029, application of Agate LLC for a change from AG Agricultural to AGR Agricultural Residential on property generally located at the intersection of Harold Road and Bluff Road, introduced by McGinnis.
So moved.
Second.
Introduced by McGinnis, seconded by Christensen. Any discussion? Roy?
This is a really good thing.
It's a really good thing. Let's hope so.
Escalating as something.
Any other
Really
discussion?
next-
Please call the roll.
Ward.
Yes.
Washington.
Yes.
Bowers.
Yes.
Christensen.
Yes.
McGinnis.
Yes.
Raybold.
Yes.
Schob.
Yes.
Motion carried 7-0. 5E, approving amendment number 1 to the Canopy Park Project Redevelopment Agreement, introduced by McGinnis.
So moved.
Okay.
Second.
Introduced by McGinnis, seconded by Christensen. Any discussion? Please call the roll.
Ward.
Yes.
Washington.
Yes.
Bowers.
Yes.
Christensen.
Yes.
McGinnis.
Yes.
Raybold.
Yes.
Schob.
Yes.
Motion carried 7-0. 5F is amending the fiscal year 1920 CIP to authorize and appropriate an increase in TIF funds of $653,656 for the Canopy Park redevelopment project, introduced by McGinnis.
So moved.
Second.
Introduced by McGinnis, seconded by Christensen. Any discussion? Please call the roll.
Ward.
Yes.
Washington.
Yes.
Bowers.
Yes.
Christensen.
Yes.
McGinnis.
Yes.
Raybold.
Yes.
Schob.
Yes.
Motion carried 7-0. 5G is an amendment to the bond ordinance to allow for the issuance of tax allocation bonds for the Canopy Park redevelopment project in the amount of $7,089,305, introduced by McGinnis.
So moved.
Second.
Introduced by McGinnis, seconded by Christensen. Any discussion? Please call the roll.
Ward.
Yes.
Washington.
Yes.
Bowers.
Yes.
Christensen.
Yes.
McGinnis.
Yes.
Raybold.
Yes.
Schob.
Yes.
Motion carried 7-0. Next then we have one resolution for action only, item 6A. It's a consultant agreement with Walker Parking Consultants Engineers to provide functional design and parking consulting services related to the parking facility at the intersection of Inn Street and Pinnacle Bank Arena Drive for a sum not to exceed $94,500, introduced by McGinnis.
So moved.
Second.
Introduced by McGinnis, seconded by Washington. Any discussion? Were everyone's questions answered before?
Mm-hmm.
Okay.
Thank you.
Please call the roll.
Ward.
Yes.
Washington.
Yes.
Bowers.
Yes.
Christensen.
Yes.
McGinnis.
Yes.
Raybold.
Yes.
Schob.
Yes.
Motion carried 7-0. Our resolutions on first reading are items 7A through D. Ordinances first reading are items 8A through E. Our pending list are items 9A and B. Anyone wishing to address the council on a matter not on this agenda and not planned to appear on a future agenda may do so at this time, since it is an open microphone session.
Have to sign into this.
Yes, please. You can state your name first.
Good evening, everyone. My name is Ryan Blake, RyanBlake. I live at 5460 Walker Avenue here in Lincoln, Nebraska. I've been a resident of Lincoln since 2008. I am here tonight to tell you how the lack of urgency or want to clean the snow and ice off residential roads has effects on me and everybody else. I've been with UPS for 5.5 years. I am not a spokesperson, and I am not here representing them. This is my own personal agenda. With that said, I love working for UPS. We have, in my opinion, the best training in the industry. It's a great place to work. It supports my family with great benefits and pay. From the end of November to the middle of January, we call it peak. It's called peak because we get triple, sometimes quadruple the volume. During peak hours, we are used to long hours, can be up to 70 hours a week if necessary. Thankfully, this peak, we lucked out and did not have to compete with Mother Nature. With a mixture of increased volume, we also opened up our resources and expanded our budget to manage this time of year. We contract people out to help move and deliver all the packages that come through our system. During my workday, I am always alert. We have many challenges throughout the day. trees hanging in the road, kids playing, random animals running around, stationary objects, mailboxes, and other drivers, just to name a few. When extreme weather hits, it's added to the list of challenges. Now that you have a background on my job, let's talk about why I'm here. With the last storm, I had a close call on a residential street. From the dad video of him taping his son ice skating down the road to the lady getting a $150 ticket because she was stuck. The ice was so thick and slick, I had to make a quick decision and crash my package truck into a curb going 2 miles an hour to avoid a collision in an intersection. UPS's policy is an intersection accident is in the same class as a fatality, so my job would have been lost. Let me reiterate, I was only going 2 miles an hour down a street. If I was asked to describe a resident of Nebraska, a few words come to mind. Right away, integrity, hardworking, compassionate, neighborly, and honest, just to name a few. I can't say I feel the same way about the City of Lincoln's Transportation Department maintaining these roads. We as citizens get a different excuse every time. Sometimes it just depends on who is being interviewed. We got the excuse of unusual weather patterns. Growing up in Nebraska, I didn't see anything unusual about this weather, this last storm. From my understanding, our budget is over $4 million for snow removal. I read Channel 1011 news segment about comparable cities and their policy regarding snow removal. This budget seems reasonable to get it done. We are also told about a task force that was going to be created. This task force wants the 4-inch policy removed. I agree. 4 inches of ice or a half an inch of 4 inches of snow or a half an inch of ice is no different on a hill in a residential area. They were told in order for that to happen, they would need to purchase pavement sensors. What do the pavement sensors do? Why wouldn't you just invest in proper equipment such as more plows or trucks that dispense sand in troubled spots? I think 99% of the citizens, including myself, want to know where all the wheel tax is going. I know I pay over $100 on my '98 Dodge Ram that sits in my driveway. By no means I'm trying to disregard the city's work that they do. I believe we have enough money to get it done. I'm not here to complain. I'm here to hopefully help find a solution, as this directly affects me personally and many other delivery drivers. Thank you for your time.
Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Thank you very much. Roy?
Ryan, so can you compare how many hours you spend on a day delivering during peak that you described, and how many hours you spent maybe this last Tuesday?
I'm telling you, during peak this year, I got home to a hot meal. This last week, I ate cold meals. I was working 11-hour days because of the lack of snow removal. During peak, we're used to it. Like I said, we can work up to 70 hours a week, which is policy, we get it. Non-peak hours, it's bad, very stressful. Yeah.
Thank you.
Yep.
Thank you for testifying.
Madam Chair?
Yes.
Mr. Blake, is that
Yes.
correct, Blake?
Yes.
So when you hit the curb, was there any damage done?
There was no
to-
damage. Thankfully, I wasn't going fast enough to cause any damage, but it definitely scared me.
Certainly did. Well, we really appreciate your coming down. Thank you for doing so. And I'm sorry you went to the former county city building at 10th and O. You had a journey to get here. I hope it was a better journey than what you had last week
I'm just
when you were
happy to be
working.
here.
So thank you very much.
Is there anyone else that would like to address the city council at open mic?
Madam Chair,
Yes.
seeing no one, two things. Remember the golden rule, and I move adjournment.
Is there a second? Would you like to stay here longer?
Second.
Introduced by Christensen, seconded by Ward. Please call the roll. Ward?
Yes.
Washington. Yes. Bowers.
Yes.
Christensen.
Yes.
McGinnis.
Yes.
Raybold.
Yes,
Schob.
Yes.
Motion carried, 7-0.
we are adjourned. Thank you very much.
Second on remote adjourn.
I thought you was-